Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Backstage and Unfiltered. Today's episode is about something that feels almost forbidden lately, which is slowing down. Not quitting, not disappearing, but choosing to move differently in a world that constantly asks us to go faster, produce more, consume more, dance harder, recover quicker, post instantly, and keep up at all costs. But what happens when music becomes something other than stimulation? What happens when sound becomes care, ritual, healing, consciousness, memory, breath? And maybe more importantly, why does slowing down sometimes feel almost political? Today, I'm joined by three people who each approach sound as something alive and transformative. We have with us on the left, I don't know which side it is for the ones watching. We have NIXIE, sound alchemist, healer, and longtime DJ and curator in Brussels, whose practice bridges sound therapy, energy medicine, ritual, and frequencies as tools for healing and reconnection. Then we have Bobbi Watson, multidisciplinary artist, producer and co-founder of projects exploring ecology, speculative futures, improvisation, and collective creation through ambient and experimental electronic music. And lastly, Leah, curator, selector, and creator of Slow You Down on Kiosk Radio and in real life, whose work explores slowness, mindfulness, and balance through dreamy soundscapes, movement, and meditation practices. I want to start with a little open questions to you all. Was there a moment where your relationship to nightlife or music had to change?
Well, had to change in a way, yes, but it was more a willing to change because it didn't feel aligned anymore. But I experienced this slow change through my career. In the beginning, music was a lot about releasing and about going crazy and being just wild and free and playful. And then at some point, I felt that it surpassed the time for me or something, and then it started to feel not enough anymore for me, and I started to go more inward and more working on my shit, and then I realized like, okay, I want to start to work with sound in a different way. Yeah. So it was a bit of a willingness to do so, but also because I felt that my body was saying like, it's enough now. You did that fun part, but now it's time to slow down and go inward and face the shadows inside and to deal with that. And as music is my love language, sound was obviously a tool to approach that in a different way.
Yeah, I think to hop on to piggyback on what Nixie said. Personally, when I first moved to Brussels, I think it was already 4 years ago, more than 4 years ago. It's like everything was so fresh and new, and I just dove into the nightlife because it had so much to offer. And then I think I dove too deep and somehow got lost in that. And as you mentioned, I think my body gave some signals to slow down, first to stop, and then to inquire myself deeper. Okay, why is this happening? How can I integrate? Because I love partying, to be honest. I love I like this comparison of day and night and yin and yang. We need both. And how can I integrate that part? Because I don't want it to disappear, but how can I make it more balanced?
Yeah. On my side, it's quite funny to have this show happening right now because, as I was telling just before off the record, right now, like I'm going through a lot of different stuff to deal with. And I'm not complaining about it because I chose it and I said yes to all of the stuff, and I do enjoy it. But at the same time, there are some moments where so much is happening that it's even hard to take the time to truly enjoy each stuff. So I guess there was a few switch in my career, but the reflection I'm currently having is connected to a profound will of wanting to have a longer time of creation and of really slowing down. And I was talking about that with a friend recently, that I think since my theater school in stage direction, I didn't have this feeling of being able to dive fully into one thing for like 3 weeks. And of course, this is like not happening a lot also for economical reason. And like this is a big luxury that is hard to find after studying. But this is something I'm really trying to figure out, how to be able to get back to that, and how to be able to be more present to everything happening. So yeah.
I really feel connected to what you're saying right now, because that's also one of the reasons why we're doing this episode today, as we're a lot to be working. Well, there's lots of people working part-time, as you, Yeye, and NIXIE. You're both like having different activities next to the music industry activities. And then for you, so Bobbi Watson, Alice, for you it's very different. And for me it's also the same as you. It's like we all have so many different side quests, and we put time in each of those, not fully, but then our brain and our body can only do like few of those. It can only be aligned to a few of those, and it's quite hard to find the process. Is it like, should we get out of it? Like, should we get out of everything? Should we get out of some things? How do you get back inside your body in some way? What's like the way to do it? NIXIE, I know you're working with this type of practices. What's something to do in your mind when you reach this point of exhaustion, and like, what should we be doing about this?
Well, what I teach, because I teach workshops on that also, is that I always say, like, we have so much tools with us at any time, our breath, our voice, to help us relax, to help us land in the present moment and sink into feeling our body again and listening to what it needs and be able to react on that. And I think the basics are the most powerful, like walking in a forest or taking a bath, or having a wholesome meal with a friend. These are just things that sometimes we think like, oh yeah, it will not do a lot, but it can sometimes shift very quickly our state of mind and our state of being. So I think, first of all, it's always remembering that the power lies within us, and we're very used to be giving our power away, to go like, doctor, fix me, while the first thing is listening to what we need in this moment. And I always say to people, try to build your own toolbox, like what works for you. For some people, is I need to go running and that calms me down. I would definitely not like that. I like different. So everybody's very different. But in the end, it can be very basic things that bring you back to a reset, and from there you can build up again and you can fill it. But to first, I always say, like, the things that you know are not good for you, try to skip those and go back to a basic reset and find your own ways to reconnect with the body. And breath is a big one. You have all kinds of different practices that you can do a couple of minutes and it changes everything. But also, for example, humming, I always teach, like, to hum. The body loves that, and it's your own voice is unique, and so it's a very powerful sound healing tool, because if you add an intention to a hum, sound plus intention is healing. And so you can send these vibrations, because with humming you breathe out and you breathe in and you breathe out with your mouth closed, so you send these vibrations into your body. And when you then add an intention, of love or gratitude or healing or relaxation or whatever, you send these vibrations and these intentions to the body, and it's much more powerful than we think, and it's much more than maybe a new age philosophy. It's really scientific stuff. So that's something that we forget, that we have those tools at all times.
Yeah, that's true. Just got reminded about one is the silly thing, #back to basics. And the second thing is the book, The Body Keeps the Score, which is a brilliant book that talks about how our body and stores so much information, even trauma. And I think there was, in this book, it outlines the study of some of the military people that went through the Vietnam War, I think, if I recall correctly. And yeah, how our body just like stores so much information, and then we think that our mind, our brain is so smart, but actually our body is the one that is smart, and it keeps giving us so much information, but we keep on shutting them down or ignoring them. And yeah, definitely taking that step back and allow that information to reach your brain and to be like, oh, maybe something is wrong. Maybe my throat is behaving a little bit weirdly, or I feel a bit of a tightening in my chest. Why is this coming? Or I feel like shrinking my shoulders because it's a sign of protection from a social interaction. Why is this happening? Are we questioning that? And I think sometimes it's really about observing yourself more and building this toolbox that you just said. And just to tap into what you earlier said, Leah, I think I also came through in my Instagram feed this novel from Sylvia Plath, and about not being able to be everything. I think that we need to accept that we go through so many side quests, but that's the beauty of it, of course. And sometimes we need to drop some side quests and not just to beat ourselves up for not being able to be everything at the same time. As in Sylvia Plath, she explains in a fig tree, there are so many leaves that you choose to take one branch. And nature, again, back to basics. Nature teaches us so much. We decide to take one branch, and that one will flourish. But if we just stop at the intersection, nothing will happen. And so maybe that comes more from. Maybe you have some insights on the nature part.
I wanted to see with you, Alice, because your practices are very different than our two other panelists. How do you feel that, first of all, if you want to tell us more about what projects you have musically that align with the whole theme of slowing down, of nature, of reconnecting what's outside, so then people can also more understand what type of things you're going through within your artistic path.
So in a matter of project, I think the most connected one to the subject right now would be Pollen, which is at the same time an ambient label, and that is organizing residencies for a certain release, certain various release. So it brings together a group of artists during a whole week in beautiful parts of La Drôme in France, and to do different workshops, exchange knowledge, get to know the local ecosystem with an ethnobotanist, practice different ways of doing field recording with different kind of mic, and just make up a lot of material out of all of this. And also Pollen, after the first residency that I was part of, also became an improvisation live project with several hands, groups that is always changing depending of the gigs. It goes from 4 to 12. and now I'm trying to remember your other question.
Yeah, but first of all, that's already very beautiful, and in my mind this is the type of project that really connects with that theme, because it's So how do you do it in some way to be able to connect with 4 to 12 people? Because it really takes a lot of yourself, but also of listening. Because did you mean that like the whole project is always ambient, or can it go from ambient to other things also?
At first, we thought it would be always ambient, but as we all also comes from club music, at some point, at some point of the set, and depending of the atmosphere and the context we're playing in, it can evolve. We give ourselves this freedom, but it always roots into ambient and listening music. And how to connect with each other. Actually, this live project emerged really organically because we were jamming and something was happening. So I don't know if we really made up tools for it, but I guess it's like when you jam with acoustic instruments, it's, as you said, always about listening, leaving spot. I think like one of the biggest tools in jam is sometimes to stay back, listen, and then knows when is the time to bring something, or knows when is the time that it's just perfect like that and maybe it's not the moment to add something. Last year I was helping with the workshop aspect, and what I was saying to the group was also like try to picture it as a living organism with several heads, and just like imagine how it breathes together. So of course sometimes we do communicate and someone is like, okay, let's do a break, but also it's like feeling when the break is good and trying to do some arranging in the impro to have this breathing of this organism. And I think what makes it lively is really like those switches and the fact it's not monoteus. Yeah, so that's a balance to find, but it really varies depending of also what you've done just before. Like we love long sets, and I think it's also because like it puts you in a certain mood, and maybe at first you were still thinking of what you had done 1 hour before, and slowly you enter like this collective breathing in a way.
Right. As you said, it's like an organism. It's letting it breathe. It's the length of it. It's all these factors that really can make it more special for people to like sink into it in some ways. All of you actually have ambient projects or residencies. I want to ask you, any of you, also, what feedbacks actually did you get from people that like you were not really expecting, from also the fact that you're bringing ambient mixes? What's something that like really stuck with you about that?
I think the first thing that stuck with me was the first event of Slow You Down that I organized. And I really had this vision of wanting to merge all the things that make me feel good, body-wise, but also emotional-wise and mentally-wise and creatively-wise. So I wanted to bring in, for sure, yoga, because I'm a yoga teacher, and I've been practicing yoga for already 10 years? Wow, yeah, I'm realizing it just now. And then, yeah, obviously also the part of music and ambient music, because I feel like sound and music is such an intangible element, but that is so much present in our life every day. How many times do we notice that there's traffic around, and that influences our mood, or that we're in complete silence, and that sometimes even bring us uncomfortable feelings, or in the forest, in nature, and then we feel immediate peace. And so I wanted to break down the practice of yoga to what is in its essence, because I feel like now, as music, even yoga became super performative in studios, like leggings, and everyone needs to be fit, and that's not the point of it, not at all. And also we're why did I want to bring everything together? It was also because I feel like in a society where we're subject to so many stimuli, I wanted also to bring everything together so that it makes somehow, it can stimulate different senses of people. Maybe someone is not into yoga, but is into ambient music. But you can explore and get introduced to something different, something new, and end up in this event and be like, oh, wow, I never did yoga like that. And vice versa. Maybe someone who is really into yoga is not into ambient music, but then finds that can get deeper into the practice thanks to those sounds. And so it stuck with me when I organized the first event that someone said, wow, this is not revolutionary, but somehow this person was like, I never seen this thing and I love it. And I was like, oh, wow, thank you for seeing what I see and what I experience. So that would really stay with me. And it was somehow a pat on to my shoulder saying like, okay, this doesn't only live in your head, you manifested it, it took a form, and it makes sense also. It resonates with someone else as well.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, for me, when I have a sound healing practice, and I always love it when people come that are skeptic, because they're like, I don't know about the sound healing, and I don't know, but it's my girlfriend who brought me here. Sometimes it happens that they're guided or they were given a gift card, and then they come, I don't know, and like all resisting. I'm like, the only thing that you actually have to do is to be open to see what happens, And then it's always a reaction afterwards, like, wow, I didn't know you could feel sound in this way, and I feel so much in my body right now, and it feels like something has expanded and opened for me, so I'm really curious to explore this. And so I always love the skeptics.
We kind of, like, maybe not all, but like when you're a city person, I feel like you kind of start with the skeptical aspect. Like, to me, that's like, I was raised in a household where like my mom was super stressed all the time. So like, to me, that became like the norm. And then just like stressful things happen all the time. And the thing is, like, even like with you saying this, I'm still very like in French we say like le cul entre deux chaises. So like, I'm really in between, like whatever, because it's like, sometimes having these things of like just hearing, yeah, sound is healing, these practices are healing, there's still the reality of it next to it. And then you cannot really like hide it just for like recovery. And I think something that's very misunderstood is about these practices such as yoga, sound healing, how it's not just like a personal journey, because it's about you. But I think it's like all those misconceptions, and like that's one point. But also, to me, something that's still, it's like, I want to ask you, like, what's your vision about this? Is I feel we're living in like a capitalistic system. We live in a Euro-central country, and these are all factors that kind of make, well, practices such as yoga very inaccurate. As you said, I want to go further maybe with this topic of like having the, like, what do we do? What's like kind of an angle when you're like actually not part of those communities, to be able to like make it shine in a way that's like good to it, like it's still practices that come from further. What's like in a way for us to not appropriate it to our own experience, but to make it maybe this thing for everyone.
I think this is a very layered question and quite challenging. Obviously, I think what stirred from me was really like how to make it accessible, how to make it in a way that my mom could enjoy it. And she doesn't have the same flexibility. She doesn't have the same education that I had. She's not equipped as I am, but can she breathe? We can all breathe. Can she hear what I'm saying? Hear, I'm not saying listening. Hear. Listening comes after. And then can she just sit? And like just reflecting on back to basics, what we were saying earlier. And then even like, I think like stretching, like I'm saying stretching because like some poses is really about stretching and moving your body. You don't need to get into downward facing dog and this kind of stuff. I think like how to, like for me it was really like to think in reverse. Like this is the end result that I would like to have. How, as a shrimp, like in Italian I say gambero. Shrimps go backwards, right? Yeah. So how do I go backwards so that I can go to the basics? And then the philosophy, because yoga is also about philosophy, and it has a really long heritage that I don't want to denaturalize. I want to also be respectful of that in a society that is so capitalistic and has capitalized on commodified yoga. All these studios where you pay so much money to go just for a practice that is supposed to make you feel better, but then you feel very performative. Like there in that class, you see these perfect bodies and you start to compare yourself. Why I'm not that flexible, why I'm not that strong. It's not about that. It's really not about that. So I really wanted to create a space that could feel safe also for everyone to experience that experience of yoga, if we want to call it like that, in a way that it makes you feel more present, not even slow down, more present in that moment. Yeah.
I think presence is a key word, huh? To really, we are used to every moment that we have not filled with something, we fill it ourselves with stimuli, often it's our phone. And I think, for example, the accessible, to make things accessible, me too, when I do new and full moon sound baths, and it's like always in a group, and I always start by explaining what is sound healing in a very earthy way, not in a very spiritual way. Because if it's spiritual to you, that's up to you. That's amazing, but that's not what it's about in the first place. It has a reaction on the body, and I tend to explain that, how that works in the body, so that there's an opening, because everybody has a body. We all have a body. So. And that is something that I feel often that people are very thankful for, that I bring it in a very earthy way, explaining it so they can relate to it, and after that give more of an access to the invitation to be open to the experience.
Maybe just to add on this, I think it's very interesting how. So I'm Chinese and I'm Italian. So I was born and raised in Italy, so with a Western culture. But then my parents are both Chinese, so they have a very different culture. And I find it so interesting how in the West, and I'm included in that, we want to explain things. Like we want to give words and description, as you just said. Like we explain things to people, but then it's still up to the body to experience that, and then how we make sense of it. And do we explain parties? Like I'm just reflecting right now. Maybe yes, maybe not. That's marketing for sure. But then when you go into that party, like you feel the energy, you feel the people, you feel the sound system and music, and that doesn't need explanation. So I find it very interesting, like these two elements that we always go back to, how we want to explain, but then still it's up to your experience and how you feeling in that moment. Maybe a party doesn't. That is not something that can work for me, but can work for you. There's so many elements, but yeah, just a reflection that I had at this moment.
Yeah, but it's very true, and I feel it also. Some people travel through the mind to the body, and some people can go there directly, and then also it doesn't need a big explanation. So it really depends on who you're working with to give an explanation to it or not. Because it's always an introduction. Some people are good with just some moments of silence, of arrival before it starts, and that's enough.
That's true. Yeah.
Because that's another thing I wanted to react to. At some point you were talking about silence. I think that is so important in this whole discussion, actually. Yeah. And actually super simple, again, but often very difficult for people.
Especially for someone who's Italian, yes.
But I think to go further about silence, I always found it very interesting that most of us, like urban people, we would say like, oh, I want to go in the back country to have some silence. And I think it's saying a lot about our relationship to silence and to the natural world, because when you actually listen, the forest and the field is not silent at all. There are so much stuff happening. So I think it's saying a lot about our relationship to sound, and I don't share exactly your practices, but I think just sometimes just like sitting and taking the time to really listen is already like reconnecting you in a way with the present moment. And yes, to go even further about silence, I always feel very sad about the fact like field recorder are the first one right now realizing the collapse of ecosystems, because when you compare recordings from years ago and recordings now, actually the forest is going silent.
Oh wow! So you can actually like
You can
notice it through the field recordings.
You can notice it, and you can now even see it if you look at the sound wave. You see that it changed a lot, and so the forest is not supposed to be silent. And it goes even further, because what happens is birds communicate through certain frequencies.
Yeah.
And a lot of noises produced by humans are stealing those frequencies area. So sometimes they adapt, and this bird that used to sing in those frequency is now singing higher or lower, because they could not hear each other anymore. But so yeah, it's just to go a bit.
It's crazy. Like you just opened like a new realization for me. Like sound, like equal ecosystem evolution or disruption, and wow, it's just like wow. Yeah.
I think what's also very interesting with that is how we tend as humans now to have this new practices. Well, festivals aren't so new, but even like on a weekly basis, we have these open air things. Now, thanks to live streams, we also invade in some ways, because that's how I see it. We invade ecosystems to bring a sound that like is good for us, but that is probably not good for the environment. I saw this week, and it's not like a targeting about the organization, it's just like to name something I just saw this week. So there's Hangar who did an event at Bois de la Cambre, so last weekend. And then there was this guy on the news that started talking a long time about how, like, first of all, it's annoying to have the sound at home. So that's one topic, of course, but also how it affected the animals that were there, because there were so many different species that live in those places. And now, as you also said, Alice, how like we are changing the ecosystem and how we're like seeking for stuff, and this silent thing. I think like there's like kind of this full circle that's quite hypocritical in our consumption way, to be like seeking adrenaline from bringing our sound to spaces that don't want it, and then kind of like living it in a way that we're like, oh yeah, I need silence now, or like I need my space that feels natural, I need a space that will resource me, when these places could resource us. But are they able to resource us now with this either silence that is not natural, or with these like noises that kind of disappeared? I'm wondering about this. This is quite an open thinking. Like, if someone wants to react.
Just maybe, I think there is a lot going on just in this word environment. As long as we consider it as environment, it's something that surrounds us and that we're not part of. Don't want to dive too philosophical in a few minutes, but it's the same with this. It's connected to this concept of nature and culture that Philippe Descola developed, and now that has been taken a lot. And by saying that they were not Western way of thinking, not Western philosopher, I'm sure that we're already like navigating this way of not splitting humans and the rest of the living world. But it's this idea that by using the word of nature, it's as environment, we put something in distance and we split from that, because we do have the culture. And if it remains nature, then we're not part of it, and that's a big part of the issue, because if you start considering that this is not nature, that this is just like the living world, and that an object that has been made by a human is also part of the living world, because like somehow you made it, you created it, you start not splitting yourself from this reality, and maybe you start thinking, okay, I'm like not bringing this sound system to an environment, I'm like part of this ecosystem, and now bringing this speaker is gonna affect the ecosystem I'm part of. And by saying that, I don't want to sound like the voice of reason, because I do bring ecosystem as well in forest. Like I'm working on this festival La Vallée Électrique, where we really question ourselves about how to build, not to affect the valley too much, to make it every 2 years, to leave the valley like grow on it again. And we're all very aware that those 2 days of music is affecting it. So yeah, but I think this environment thing is a good start to like not split us from the rest of the living world.
I want to get back to some other questions I had in mind that would be more around resistance of the body, how we react to the silence, how we react to the sounds. Would any of you help me with that? But like, on what do you think that like rest and slowing down and all these factors feel like it's hard to get into at the moment?
Yeah, I actually had this question this reflection more than question when I was like coming to here, because it says like slowing down as an act of resistance. I think it's an act like resistance, as in like because we resist to the fact of slowing down, like not because it's something like revolutionary or something that goes against the flow, but it's because we're not used anymore to take the time to get bored, to sit in silence, to get only like to think of our own thoughts. Even for me, that I tried actively to do that. Slowing down and resting is something very, very hard, because in the environment, like my people in my proximity, everyone is doing something. Everyone is like rushing towards something, and perhaps we need also support from each other to remind ourselves that we need this to slow down, because everything is a cycle. Like the night comes, it's true that we have nightlife, but we also need to rest, and then the day comes, and then we get active. And as the seasons, again, like we also have winter to rest, to cocoon, to create ideas, to replenish our energies. But somehow in this, again, capitalistic world, we forget that, and but that's why we resist to that act of slowing down.
And I also think I see often when people are very stressed, for example, you cannot just start, but just breathe deeply, and because they want to hit your head, then you first have to, or what my experience and the how I studied it is that you have to kind of meet them where they're at, and then bring them to a place of. So sometimes it's very good if you're very stressed to go dancing and dance all the stress out, like really go crazy and dancing out, and then the next day take the rest to recharge, and that can be much better than to now I have to rest, and because you stay in this stress state because you don't release.
True, that's completely true, actually. And to go back to what you mentioned before, you said like people sometimes want to run, and for example, run is also not for me. Like knowing yourself is key here.
Absolutely.
And knowing what flavors you like, and how do you, for example, even in yoga, sometimes people say, yoga is not for me. Did you try all the types of yoga? Or did you try all the types to listen to all the types of music? Because even in electronic, some people say, electronic music is not for me. Okay, you listen to all types of electronic music? I can't believe that there's not any of them that you like. So it's really about knowing yourself, being open, just to quote yourself again, and to allow to see what works for you. Yeah.
I do really agree with what you just said, both. I think also sometimes in certain personal development thing, which yoga can be connected to, of course, it's not that at all, but like development, personal is like taking few stuff. But a lot of the time it will get back to the individual. Like if, and I'm going into the gray area now, because I do agree that we do have the tools inside us to do a lot of stuff. But I think sometimes there is a way of putting everything on the shoulder of the individual, and not thinking about like the current contemporary context that is just like leading to all of this burnout, and burnout being like the bad of the century. And like there is this philosopher Paul Virilio that wrote a lot about the speed and how every new technology is speeding up. And I always find it crazy. We did invent a measurement that is going faster than our brain, because right now computers are doing stuff without us, and we invited microseconds that our brain cannot even imagine. True. So I think like I walk a lot, like I hike a lot. I think that's how I also maybe
slow
down. And I read a lot about the philosophy of the walking, and it's always the same ideas. Whatever the century, it's funny to see how it's always the same thought about getting back to your body, like how does the food taste after a day of hiking. But what I also really enjoy is this idea of getting back to the cosmic temporality. It's not like the microsecond, we cannot even figure it out, but even the minutes doesn't have importance, because you're just like following the cycle of the sun, and your idea is to have set up your tent before the sun is down. Yeah. And walking is a super slow way of moving, and it's to me it always feels like I don't know, in a way you have really time not to be facing a landscape anymore, but to be part of it a bit. And maybe the last anecdote I have, when I was researching on walking and the speed, I discovered that in Paris they tried at some point, they have this walking mechanical walkway in the metro. They tried a super fast mechanical walkway, and there was some accident at the start and at the end, like people were falling, and I was really like, okay, like our body is not going fast enough for the society, and we reach a point where we invent something that is going too fast for our body, and where like people are just like falling because this is going too fast. And
you saw this?
And I saw, it was an article like on the internet. I didn't actually saw the accident, but it was an article from different like journal, reviews, and I was just like,
that's super funny actually. I think I'm gonna try to look for the article and videos on this. And then to go back on what you said about the cosmic timing, and I think it's so true, like to put things into perspective of like not so much human centric, but like really like to put into context of what is around us and to be part of that. And then I was reflecting also on what you said about individuality. I think what I miss is about like collective rituals as well, like and this is what also helps us also to remind ourselves to get out of our own individuality, but to be in a group and to be reminded of other rhythms, and not everything is onto our shoulders, but we can rely also on other people. And I think especially in city settings we don't have so many rituals, and perhaps raving and partying, that was my ritual. That became my ritual.
Yeah, that's why I also do these new moon and full moon sound baths, to really have this moment to think further than yourself, to come into connection with the cosmos, and but also to create a community, and to afterwards also have a moment to share and talk about it. And I think that is something that is rare, and it's a pity, because I feel it's so. You can really easily get out of your own little bubble when you connect to something greater than, like you said, we're part of nature. When people say we're disconnected from nature, no, we are nature. But to have a moment to really see, like, okay, there's more at play than our own shit, you know, and to come together also in a ritual and collectively experience that and speak about that. I think that's it's very nice. So all be welcome.
I completely agree with you. You put this word of ritual on parties, and to me, a good party is a ritual. In a way, I always find it interesting that in the history of dance, at some point we went from couple dance, like rock and like tango, when all of this was happening. Like there were traditional dance before that people were like holding hands, and we still practice that. But then there was a moment where rock was like much more practiced, and it was a duo dance. And now, like the century has brought like these techno parties, and in my mind, it's always like several bodies all dancing on their own rhythm, but on the same rhythm as well. And it's always a question of feeling, but I always feel like parties that I truly enjoy is when, you know, something is organically happening in the crowd. You don't need to communicate with language, but with the eyes and with the body. Everyone is somehow dancing together, and so you don't get pushed or, you know. And I've experienced other crowds where it just feels like individuals or groups that are like standing in a place, not caring with the other, and where the crowd doesn't vibrate together. And I would call the ritual the good kind of crowd, the crowd that is like actually vibrates together. Whereas maybe I'm making it really like a black and white, but like sometimes when you have more those split groups and individuals, it feels a bit like more individual consumption than like collective ritual.
Yeah, actually, that's true. I was just reflecting, how do I enter in this ritual of going to parties? Like, when I didn't have a good party, it was because I just wanted to escape something, or I just wanted to do a checkbox. And like, oh, my friends are there, I'm just going there. And then it's like, even like with this mindset. But when I really am into the feeling of like, okay, putting my intention, like thinking, okay, the preparation ahead, and just like I think the group intention is different. And then that I experienced also a good party. And I remember when I went to La Nature, and I was really into it, which is a festival, but I really remember that we took the time to check in with each other in the group with friends, and it was a whole preparation of like, okay, if we get lost, like we meet here. And it was really like doing a bit of a checklist, emotional but also logistical. And I think that allowed also all of us to be safe in that ritual, because I think often we're just thrown into something without knowing what we're gonna go through. And I think it's so important to have a bit of this moment of checking in, and that allows everyone to have a good experience, and then to have fun. Even if you get lost and then you don't see maybe your friend for the next couple of hours, you know they're in a good mindset. But if they're not, then you have an extra eye on them, because they told you, or they don't know what they're going through.
Yeah, I believe intention is really the key, always, like for yourself, but also as a collective. Like, what is your intention for this ritual, for this party? You know, if you go there to numb yourself or escape, it's very individualistic and it's very destructive, actually. But if you go there to connect with people, or to dance and release some shit that you worked on this week, or it can be very cathartic, and it can be very opening and expansive. And so intention, I think it's individual and collective, super important to make a ritual, you know.
To me, it even comes with this ritual thing. Like, it comes down to really being self-aware in some ways, as we talked about this before. When you're in a industry, because that's still an industry, that's kind of the struggle you can have with it. It's also like, how do you kind of go with your flow? How do you go with the flow when the flow isn't aligned with you, but you still have to keep going? And that, like, to me, is a big struggle. I feel like to lots of us, it's a big struggle, and it's kind of counterintuitive. And still we listen more to the things that like our mind is telling us rather the things that our body is telling us, when in some ways I feel like the end game is we all know what it feels like you said, to have this like flow state, this like conscious way of doing it. And like what bothers me a lot at the moment is kind of like how everybody's doing it for the sake of their how to say, like their group, their tribe in a way. And that's like, from what you said, that's also like a question that runs a lot in my head, because we kind of feel like we know what a good party is like, what a good environment is like, but it's still not the only one. And for us, what feels good is not what feels good to someone else. And even though you didn't reach a point of being able to sit with your own thoughts, with your own feelings at some point, or maybe if you did, but you still like a certain way of doing, like, how do we handle all these different groups as an ecosystem? And maybe I'm wrong with that, but at the moment, one big thing that is really like kind of my focus is like, how do you put everyone in a space? Like, how do you have every type of person in a space? Because to me, that's the best way to kind of regain consciousness, to kind of have the best impact on each other. And I'm not sure it is. Maybe it's gonna cost peace to some. It could to me, as I've said in past episode, like I'm super hypersensitive to everything. So that means I have great times with music, but I can also have the worst times with music and with people and with smells and with how many people there is and all these things. So maybe I'm wrong with that, and it's still like, of course, we only have an hour to discuss the thing, so it's only small seeds we're dropping. But what would be an advice you would give to me or to anyone who is kind of like struggling to enjoy it all, even though like life keeps going, and like you have like some things you want to do, you have some like things you want to feel? Like, what's a way to be more present in what's going on, even though it's not always the best time for you, you know?
First of all, thanks for sharing and for inviting us. I find it always nourishing having these conversations, because you're not the only one. I have the same, and then I'm quite picky with parties. And but I try to be open, because I know that some other friends are not as picky as I am. And sometimes sharing their experience with these other friends, maybe sometimes they introduce a party. Okay, I go with you, but next time I'm the one choosing. And then you can come with me. And then let's see. Maybe you enjoy mine more. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong, like as you said. And I think what helps me is, often I overthink. I'm super sensitive, as you said, to everything. Sometimes when I too many people, I get overwhelmed. Too little is too little for me. I want more stimuli. And so I think for me, what works is also to experience different things, but also to exchange opinions, as we're doing right now, because you're not the only one. I can be reminded that I'm not the only one thinking all this time, and to be exposed to all these things, and to feel that it is okay. It is okay to feel in this way. Yeah, I don't know if this helps.
I don't know if it's a direct answer to your question, but I think going back to that ecosystem metaphor again, but I think on my side, the parties I enjoy the most are the one where you can have many different paths inside the party. The ones that are not only music focus, that are not like a main act focus, but where you can arrive with 5 people and everyone will have a different story to tell at the end of the night. So then it goes above music, and of course it goes to this multidisciplinary aspect, to but it can also be just imagining at some point a stage design, a chill zone that is gonna create other kind of social interaction. It can be imagining a little piece of art, interactive art, and maybe you won't stop there, but maybe she will, and she will spend like 2 hours like having fun with a guy she didn't knew before because of that thing that was hidden in a corridor and that maybe no one else noticed. And I feel like if we start more decentering somehow our parties, and I'm saying that, of course, it depends on venues. You cannot do that everywhere. You have to have the proper space to do it. You have to be willing to put a lot of work into stage design, which never pays, and that no one knows you did it, but you did it, and all of this. But I think maybe if we go towards those kind of parties that opens different paths, and not only the main music dance floor one, maybe then more people can be able to enjoy it. Because maybe this night you were a bit tired and you just want to talk to the children, to a complete foreigner for like 3 hours about what we're discussing now. Or maybe you want to stay all day, all night long on the dance floor. And yeah, I feel like different paths is an option.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that also fuck FOMO and enjoy some more JOMO. Yes. You know, like you don't have to be everywhere, and sometimes it's okay to not participate, and then maybe next time you will, you know, enjoy it exponentially. And that's also something, for example, I had to learn because I wanted to be everywhere because I was curious and I was eager to have fun and dance or meet people or whatever. And now I'm much more into like the joy of missing out. Also, I'm a bit older than you guys, but I feel FOMO is also a big one that sometimes gets us to a place that we might not have to be at that moment, and that's really fine, you know.
Thanks for that insightful conversation, everyone. That was very like a conversation I wanted to have for such a long time. It feels very important to me right now as we're all fighting our own battles or fighting very real battles happening in the world, to be able to slow when it's necessary, to regain power within our own bodies, our own communities, find ways to be more present in the space. So thanks for that. That's like lots of food for thoughts. To anyone listening to us, please go check all of their activities, listen to their residencies, as more ambient music is better for the soul. And yeah, I hope everybody here and listening to us had a great time. And I'll see you all for the last episode ever of Backstage at Unfiltered. End of June. Check my social media. Yeah, bye everyone.
Bye you. Bye bye.